Don't let that woman near the control center, someone barked as Elena approached the flight line. But just then, a chilling transmission crackled through the air. Control tower. Redigal will not land unless Falcon 07 is airborne. The base froze. Who is this woman that even the enemy knew by name? And why did her call sign seem to unnerve everyone? At 0530 hours, Elena Vasquez stood alone in Desert Ridge's maintenance hangar, her hands stained with grease. Her flight suit bore patches reading ground support, not pilot wings. She was 28, fully qualified to operate any drone in the fleet, yet burdened by the label that had followed her like a shadow, Falcon 07. The name had stuck to her since her tactical pilot trial 18 months prior. She'd aced every test, dominated the simulations, flown like someone born for it. But when the final review board convened, they stamped her file with words that quietly ended careers. Reflexes incompatible with combat scenarios. That phrase tasted like rust. So now she handled logistics, setting up training simulations for pilots deemed more suitable for missions she'd once dreamed to fly herself. In briefings, officers talked over her like she was part of the furniture. Her ideas were brushed aside with polite nods and forgotten as quickly. Let Vasquez handle the diagnostics, they'd suggest. She got a knack for the tech. Colonel Rodriguez had cemented the pecking order during last month's operations meeting. She's better off fixing circuits than gripping control sticks. Some folks are just made to support, not lead, he'd added, earning laughter from a room full of pilots who had never cracked 70% on tactical exams Elena routinely nailed. Still, she had learned to make meaning from the margins. Every morning, she arrived before anyone else to prep the drones others would take into the sky. She ran system checks on controls she understood better than most operators ever would. She wrote training programs that pushed pilots to the edge of their skill without tipping them into danger, and always she trained. Any free minute found her inside the simulator, flying through battle sequences with surgical precision. Not because she thought they'd ever let her back in the air, but because skill once earned needed tending. Captain Marcus Kane discovered her secret during a routine check. He had stepped into Hangar 7 to discuss simulation specs and instead caught her mid-maneuver, executing a flawless evasive pattern in the advanced drone sim, a maneuver that most seasoned operators fail dozens of times before mastering. How long have you been working on that? Kane asked. Elena powered down the simulator, without glancing at him. Since the day they told me my reflexes didn't measure up. That wasn't just good, Marcus said. That was better than the manual. But a manual doesn't count for much when no one lets you turn the pages. He watched her closely, noting how naturally her hands had danced over controls, like every motion came from muscle memory, not calculation. Vasquez, that move, where'd you pick it up? I pieced it together from combat footage and theoretical modeling, she replied, already stowing her gear. Easing back into the duties she was officially allowed to do. I learned to rely on instinct, Captain. Problem is, instinct doesn't earn you accommodation. Just beneath the edge of her collar, half concealed under worn maintenance tags, Marcus noticed something strange. A faded patch, threadbare and softened with time. The number 07 stitched in silver. Squadron insignia, clearly handled, clearly kept. What's that? The 07. Elena's fingers touched it without thinking. A reminder, she said, of who I used to be before they told me who I'd never be. Kane had more questions, but she was already walking away, her boots thudding rhythmically against the hangar floor. The practice gave someone used to moving unnoticed through spaces where she didn't quite belong. That night, Marcus couldn't shake what he'd seen. A perfect maneuver under pressure. Instincts that fired faster than thought. Technical mastery that surpassed many of the active duty pilots he knew. If Elena Vasquez was considered a liability, then the term liability was long overdue for redefinition. He jotted down a note. Pull her full service record. Something wasn't adding up. Either someone had missed the truth or had buried it point 3 days later. Marcus stumbled across a forgotten video file buried deep in the archives. Drone Combat Sim, Advanced Tactics. The date stamp read 1,347 hours on a Tuesday. Official records marked the day as routine training, But what played on his monitor was anything but ordinary. The drill had matched anonymous operators against enemy sim aircraft crafted from real-world data. Call signs were randomized to keep judgments fair. No names, just performance. He skipped past the early warm-ups until a moment that stole his breath. One operator, anonymous, locked in a digital dogfight with simulated threat known as Redigal, a name that carried weight across the aviation world for one simple reason. Redigal never lost, and no real ID on file. The combat record practically folklore. Redigal's wins and simulations bordered on legend, the kind whispered about in classrooms and debriefs. Redigal's training victories were the stuff of legend. Operators who went up against him in sims came back shaking their heads, telling tales of split-second maneuvers and tactical wizardry that bordered on unreal, and 0-1 beat Redigal. Not once. Marcus watched in silence as the operator Mark Falcon 07 pulled off a sequence that tossed conventional drone strategy out the window. Instead of clashing head-on with Redigal's relentless assault, 07 stayed defensive, slowly coaxing the enemy into tighter, riskier patterns. The engagement ran just over 11 minutes. Redigal used every trick in the elite playbook, pushing his sim drone near the edge of structural failure in pursuit of an edge. But Falcon 07 met each tactic with moves that felt almost preemptive, as though she saw them coming before they happened. AT precisely 1,358 hours. Redigal's aircraft flamed out. Simulated engine failure triggered by a reckless dive. He ejected, marking his first loss after more than 60 straight victories. But the most unforgettable part wasn't the defeat itself. It was the voice that followed. "Control, this is Redigal," came the transmission, staticky but unmistakable. "I need to know who that was." "Negative, Redigal," came the reply. "Participant identities remain classified." "I understand protocol," Redigal answered. "But that operator, those moves weren't standard. Somebody taught them techniques I've never seen." Marcus replayed the moment multiple times before something hit him hard enough to make his hands go cold. The flying pattern 07 had used matched exactly the evasive maneuver Elena had demonstrated in the simulator. He paused the feed, leaning in close to study the telemetry layered over the footage. Falcon 07's biometric stats: steady the entire time. Heart rate, stress levels, reflex lag, all within normal bounds, even while facing the most formidable simulation opponent in the program. Whoever 07 was, they dropped Redigal with near-zero physiological stress. Marcus pulled up the exercise logs from that day, comparing operator assignments with aircraft data. Most names and squadrons were there, except for 07. Her identity was listed as classification pending, with a vague note about reassignment to alternate duties after the exercise. Alternate duties, as in logistics, as in repair scheduling, as in declared a liability. He found Elena back in the parts warehouse, poring over inventory sheets spread across a metal table. Her hair was tied back neatly, making her look younger than she usually did, despite the grease smudges and shadows under her eyes. "Vasquez, I need to ask you something," he said. She glanced up, distracted. "If this is about the sim calendar, it's posted under Falcon 07. Her pen froze mid-stroke. She didn't move, didn't react much, but something in her eyes gave away recognition. Recognition flickered. Fatigue, a kind of quiet surrender. "I don't know what you're getting at, Captain." Training footage from 14 months back. A sim match against Redigal. Marcus stayed seated across from her, his voice hushed. "That was you, wasn't it?" Elena slowly lowered her pen and looked at him. Really looked at him. "Why does it matter?" "Because I saw you beat the best simulation pilot anyone's ever faced. I saw you do what no one else could." He leaned forward, and I saw what happened after. They buried the file, shuffled you off to logistics, classified the whole thing. "Because I embarrassed someone?" she asked, rising to face the hangar window. Outside, operators were gearing up for missions she had helped them train for. The day after that sim, Colonel Rodriguez called me into his office. Said my performance was irregular, needed further review. She touched the worn 07 patch on her collar. 3 weeks later, they decided my reflexes didn't fit combat standards. "You were too good." Marcus asked quietly. I wasn't meant to be that good, Elena replied. I was supposed to be the engineer who lent a hand with training modules, nothing more. She turned from the glass. They needed Redigal undefeated for morale, for recruitment, for the legend that holds this whole sim program together. Marcus could feel the pieces sliding into place. Clean, mechanical, inevitable. So they erased your win, buried your name, and reassigned you. They offered a choice, she said. Stick with logistics and keep my benefits, or face disciplinary charges for unauthorized participation in a classified event. She returned to her paperwork. I chose to stay useful, but you held on to the patch. Her fingers brushed the silver 07 like muscle memory. Reminders matter, Captain. They remind you what you were, or what you still are. Marcus started to leave, but paused at the doorway. Vasquez, that evasive pattern you've been perfecting. Redigal tried to counter it mid-sim. Didn't work. I know, she said, eyes still on her forms. I built it for operators who think nothing can touch them. At 0847, the base alarm shattered the stillness. Operators rushed to suit up. Ground crew snapped into motion. Elena was shoulder deep in a diagnostic when the loudspeaker came alive. All personnel, priority alert. Unidentified aircraft entering restricted airspace. Repeat, unknown contact inbound. Hostile intent assumed. From the open hangar doors, Elena could already see the scramble. Operators sprinting toward the control center. Suits half-fastened, headsets clutched tight. She'd watched this drill dozens of times, always from the sidelines. This time didn't feel like a drill. She wiped her hands on a rag and made her way toward the communications center, where rapid-fire radio updates spilled from open channels. Control, this is Falcon Leader. Came the call. Multiple bogies on radar, bearing 270. Angels 15 requesting weapons authorization. Negative, Falcon Leader. Hold defensive posture. Attempting contact with inbound. Elena heard the strain in the comm operator's voice. It was the kind of tension that told you things were about to break. One poor translation, one wrong tone, and a misstep could spiral into something international. Then came a voice, smooth, clipped English touched with a faint Eastern European accent. Control tower, this is called sign Redigal, requesting permission to land. Every channel went dead. Elena felt her pulse stall. Redigal. Here, not in a simulator. In real airspace. Unidentified aircraft. Declare intent and nation of origin. Redigal represents no hostile state. I seek dialogue with one specific operator. The radio tech stared around the room, clearly unsettled. Redigal, identify the operator you're requesting. Call sign Falcon 07, the one who defeated me in simulation 14 months ago. Elena's knees nearly gave out. Around her, glances darted across the room, puzzled, alarmed. Only she and Marcus knew the truth behind that sim. Just then, Colonel Rodriguez stormed through the doors, face flushed with disbelief. What the hell is Redigal talking about? We got no one tag 07. The radio flared again. Control, I will not land unless Falcon 07 is airborne for engagement. I cross borders for this. I won't leave unanswered. Sir, Marcus cut in, voice sharp and sure. I believe I know who Redigal means. Rodriguez snapped his head around. Explain. Now. Vasquez, sir. Elena Vasquez. She flew as Falcon 07 in Exercise 1347 14 months ago. Rodriguez blinked. Vasquez? The tech specialist. His voice went up a pitch. That's not possible. I've reviewed the full recording, sir. Vasquez beat Redigal in sim combat. Marcus hesitated, then dropped a line that shattered the room's certainty. It's the only time Redigal has ever lost. Rodriguez stared at him like he claimed physics no longer applied. You're saying our logistics engineer took down the most feared simulation pilot in the world? Before Marcus could reply, Elena stepped forward. Sir, requesting permission to speak. The room turned toward her. The woman they'd written off as maintenance stood calm, sure of herself in a way that training couldn't teach. Redigal isn't some simulation bot. He's active military, former Eastern Bloc, likely Czech, judging by his accent. Elena said evenly, "He's not here to fight, sir. He's here to understand how someone with zero combat clearance flew circles around him." She let the moment hang. "He's here to learn." Vasquez, Colonel Rodriguez said skeptically, "You're suggesting we let a maintenance tech engage with a foreign military pilot?" "I'm suggesting we let the person who already defeated Redigal finish what she started." The radio sparked again. "Control," Redigal said. "I know 07 is listening. Your silence confirms the operator is present but not authorized. That's unfortunate." Before anyone could react, Elena moved to the console and picked up the mic. "Redigal, this is Falcon 07. I'm here." The pause that followed stretched long enough for her to count her pulse. "Ghost Girl," Redigal replied, his voice carrying something close to relief. "At last. I've been searching for you since our match. No one would confirm your identity." "What do you want, Redigal?" "To understand. You flew in ways I couldn't predict, patterns that anticipated my every tactic. I need to know, how did you learn to fly like that?" Elena scanned the room, faces frozen, stunned, uncertain, and finally intrigued. "I studied you, Redigal. Every mission tape, every maneuver you used, every breakdown in the sim reports. I learned to beat you by thinking like you." "Impossible," Redigal replied. "Those records are restricted." "Not to maintenance with the right clearance," Elena said with a faint smile. "We see everything, Redigal. We're just not supposed to act on it." Another long silence. Then, 07, I offer proposal. One-on-one, no weapons, tactical flight only. Show me in real air what you showed me in simulation, and I'll leave peacefully. Colonel Rodriguez moved toward the mic, but Elena raised her hand, and he actually stopped. "Redigal," she said, "what assurance do I have this ends with your exit?" "My word as a pilot, and my pledge that certain sensitive footage remains buried if you accept." Elena knew instantly what he meant. Redigal had found the same archive Marcus had. If he leaked it, there would be questions that led straight to the cover-up. "Sir," she turned to Rodriguez, her voice calm but firm, "I recommend we agree. Vasquez, you're not cleared for combat operations." "With respect, sir, this isn't combat. It's a demonstration." She squared her stance. "And I'm the only one here who's ever bested him." Rodriguez surveyed the room, gauging the risk in every path forward. None were safe. At last, he keyed the mic. "Redigal, terms accepted. One-on-one, no armament. You depart afterward." "Perfect," came the reply. "Falcon 07, I've waited a long time for this moment. This time we fly without masks." Elena turned to go, but paused at the threshold. "Sir," she said, "requesting permission to use aircraft designation Dragon Wing 07 for this flight." Rodriguez gave a small nod. "Granted." And Vasquez, "Yes, sir. Try not to make us look bad." Elena smiled, a confidence rising in her that hadn't surfaced in 14 months. "Sir, I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to remind Redigal exactly why he lost the first time." She climbed into the drone control station with a grace born of repetition. Every motion smooth and instinctive. The system responded like it remembered her, precise, immediate. As she moved through the pre-flight sequence she'd run countless times in simulations, but never once in an actual combat scenario. 07, this is Tower. You are cleared for launch. Redigal is airborne at Angels 20. "Copy, Tower," she said. Dragon Wing 07 initiating launch sequence. The advanced combat drone roared skyward through her controls, the precision pinning her focus to the screen. Real flight struck different, heavier, sharper. Every control input mattered in a way no sim ever could. AT 20,000 feet. She spotted Redigal's aircraft on her scope, a shadowy, high-performance fighter with unknown specs, almost certainly modified. He held position in a textbook attack posture, poise, and waiting. 07, shall we begin? Copy, Redigal. Initiating demonstration. What unfolded next was 12 minutes of flight that redefined combat theory. Elena pulled from the same defensive sequences that had unseated him in simulation, but here she recalibrated for actual physics. Full speed vectors and real world airspace. She didn't chase, she lured. Her maneuvers forced Redigal into escalating levels of complexity, each pass subtly undermining his approach, exposing gaps in timing and response that Redigal countered with techniques far beyond protocol. Part American precision, part Russian audacity, part European fluidity. But Elena had seen all of it. She'd studied every tradition, dissected every tactic, preparing the quiet hours no one said to the eighth minute. She pulled a maneuver that had sealed their sim match, a tightening spiral, structurally punishing, forcing a decision. Stay locked and risk failure, or disengage or Redigal pulled back. Exceptional 07, he said, his voice carrying true admiration. Now I understand why you remain a ghost. Your patterns are unlike anything I've ever faced. Thank you, Redigal, Elena replied. Will you keep your word? Fully. This flight never happened, and the footage remains sealed. You have my honor. Appreciate it. Safe skies 07. What will you do now? You don't belong in logistics. Elena looked down at the base spread out below, its runways dotted with figures, watching something they could feel, but not name. I'll do what I always do, Redigal. Whatever my country asks. Redigal's jet peeled away, slicing east toward international airspace. Elena eased her drone into landing sequence, a cocktail of satisfaction and uncertainty tightening in her chest. The landing was flawless, precisely by the book. As her drone rolled to a stop in a hangar, she spotted Colonel Rodriguez on the tarmac, watching her approach with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. She stepped down from the control station and found the entire base gathered around her workstation. Operators, engineers, radio techs, clerks, everyone who attracted engagement either through radar or whispers on the comms. Vasquez, Colonel Rodriguez called, his voice steady, his posture formal. Report. Sir, Redigal has withdrawn as agreed. No weapons used, no damage incurred. Threat resolved. Assessment. She took a breath, choosing her words. Sir, Redigal is one of the best I've seen. The encounter proved instructive for both of us. Rodriguez gave a slow nod. Vasquez, effective immediately. You are reinstated to active flight status. Full certification. Combat authorization granted. A wave of applause broke out across the hangar. Elena stood still as it washed over her. Something she hadn't felt in over a year. Not redemption, exactly. Recognition. Sir, she said, I appreciate the reinstatement, but I'd like to request one additional assignment. Name it. I'd like to build a program that finds hidden talent. Personnel whose skills outstrip their roles. She hesitated for just a second. I'd like to call it Flight from Silence. Approved. You'll work with Captain Kane to implement it. Marcus stepped forward, handing her a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. Vasquez, he said simply, this belongs with you. Inside was a fresh flight patch, Dragonwing 07 in silver thread over black cloth. Beneath it, in tiny lettering, From Silence to Sky. Elena fastened it to her flight suit, swapping out the weathered old token for something that carried not memory, but momentum. Sir, she said, looking Rodriguez in the eye, requesting permission to return to duty. Granted, 07. Welcome home.